So welcome to another Wargame review from theplayersaid.com. I'm Alexander.
I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at the Invincible Armada, 1588. And this is by Turning Point Simulations, and it was designed by Mark McLaughlin. There it is. Grant did an interview with him about this game. You can actually read that. I'll post the link underneath for you. So this is a game about the Spanish Armada and the would-be attempted invasion of England. And this is kind of a what if, recreating that. And the game allows a bit more the opportunity for the Spanish to actually get there and invade England and see what happens. But it's mostly a naval, it's both naval tactical and naval strategic,
right.
But I feel like it's more heavily focused on the tactical aspect.
The strategic really is just getting you along, moving you down towards the end of the game.
Yeah. And then, it's almost like a timer, but then there's some tactical aspects about where you'll enter the tactical board, where you are on the strategic board as well.
Yeah.
But it's a really neat, very interesting simulation. This is part of their, what is it called?
20 Greatest Battles of History.
Yes.
So there's a book written by a gentleman, I think Creasy and Mitchell, maybe. I'm trying to remember the name. But they chose 20 battles throughout the history of the world that were very decisive and
pivotal.
Changed the history of the world. Yeah. So, and this was one of those, because the historical issue behind this is, had the Spanish Armada reached England, invaded, and potentially killed Queen Elizabeth, right? The Reformation may never have happened, and would have changed the world considerably.
Yeah, things would have been, very, very cool theme. I love the theme. Obviously, I'm biased to the theme. This is stuff that we looked at in history classes when I was a kid. The Spanish Armada is one of these huge victories that we get taught about. You know, the Catholic invasion, basically.
Right.
It was,
the Spanish.
And they were beleaguered getting there, a lot of bad weather, things were smashed up, and then it was crushed. And it was a great Protestant victory in Europe, so to speak. And it really set back the Spanish and took them out of the naval power for a few years. But the game itself is good.
Yeah, I think it's a good game. I think there's a lot of problems with it, and we made this comment while we were playing near the end, and it came down to a die roll.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that, but it came down to a die roll where I rolled extremely poorly. I rolled a 1, and because I had rolled poorly in that turn during the fire ships and the rendezvous, I had lost several of my ships to broken condition, and it added a whole bunch of negative modifiers. I had to get to a 10. I ended up getting to a 4.
Yeah.
So 1 or 2 more of those ships not have been up there, and let's say I rolled a 3 or a 4. All of a sudden it's a different game, and it moves to the next level. And then I had to try to get the army across the strait or the narrow and get into England. So a little anticlimactic, I think, is in my opinion. I felt like we spent, and this game was, I thought, too long for what it was. And part of it's because we've never played before. We weren't totally familiar with the rules. But this took us between setup and play down about 3.5 hours, give or take. And I think in the interview with Mark, he talked about it was somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. So we well overshot that. But for what it is, I felt like that was too long.
Yeah.
And I felt like we spent the entire time battling each other, trying to avoid hits and damage, you trying to inflict hits and damage, and then it all came down to a stupid dice roll.
On a D6. That was disappointing, because it had been a really fun game up until
that point.
Like aside, the tactical aspect was great. It's very simple. This is easy to learn. Yeah. The strategic part is very interesting. It's almost trying to make pit stops in a race as the English, get back into port, to do some emergency repairs and get back out. It reminded me a little bit of how I feel playing Thunder Rally, where it's like, oh, when to go to port,
right.
Don't want to lose the Armada. And so there was part of that. That was fun, and everything was really great. And then it was just die roll on a D6, and the game was over. And that was I wanted there to be a bit more to that. And I won the game. I won the game that way. That was like, I guess I did enough.
I think anticlimactic is the... But what I wanted to say about what's good about it, right? I think we dwelt a little bit on the negative. A great presentation.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed this concept of the tactical map where you are literally moving around, jockeying, trying to attack each other and move away. You're trying to get at some of my supply ships so that they can be damaged.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fun. And then this strategic map is really, like you said, a timer. It's moving you towards the end of the game. But there's also some neat elements there. Lots of randomness, and I like that. The random chit draw for the events. Each turn, each player got to draw 2 of these random chits. And they were things like, something explodes on your ship, right? And you take a damage and have to do a morale roll. Or you draw an event that would take place later where you could use it to re-roll a dice or inflict another hit. So really liked that element. I thought those were well designed, and I really liked that part.
Yeah, they keep the game light. Right. It's like you understand there's an element of randomness to it.
Right.
It's like, I get some cool events, do some cool stuff, roll some dice.
The weather was also random. You you had to roll 2 dice, and I think more often than not we got the westerly wind. And,
which is how the table is set up. So
right.
It was decent that way.
But I like that. Loved the player aids. These are great. In fact, very well done. I think you can play this game for the most part without even reading the rules through. I think for the most part.
Yeah,
there's some elements you're going to have to check and double check and recheck.
But those are numbered, and you can
right. You can kind of just follow the steps. So really liked that. These displays for each of the sides. This was the Spanish. Alexander had the English. Really liked that you were keeping track of your ammunition, your damage counters, as well as any conditions on that board. Really clean, I thought. Really liked that part.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really, really fun, and I liked that it was simple. And I've mentioned that, but so many of like the sailing, high seas games that can get very, very technical and very
complex,
deep and long, and there's so much to take care of. This is very simple. You take care of ammo and hits basically.
And really, the sailing part is you can't move directly into the wind, with the exception of I think one of my ships, which was a galley, a rowed galley, and then the English could move not into the wind, but they could move extra spaces.
Yeah.
Which just their ships were better. Their ships were better designed, so we didn't have to worry about a lot of the elements. It was fairly straightforward, and I liked that.
And the tactical choices for the combat, and we'll look at these a little bit more in depth. What made the combat really cool. There's a combat matrix, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second.
Which I think I finally figured out near the end of the game that obviously the Spanish, because you have to make about a 500-mile journey, give or take 500-600 miles from Spain all the way up there, maybe.
The way that they were sailing was a lot more than that.
Okay. But I was trying to survive, so I wasn't really worried about trying to engage you as much. And I'm an aggressive player, right?
Yeah.
I want to get on it, and I want to attack you, and I want to shoot my cannons.
And I'm like, bring it on!
Yeah, so I was boarding a lot on in the early stages, which, looking back now, I obviously would have not been doing that. But to be honest, I wasn't really that damaged. I think I did a pretty good job of repairing, removing my shot markers and resupplying. So really, I played it well. It was just that final die roll that killed me.
Which is unfortunate. But let's go and take a closer look at the board. So here's a look at kind of the game itself. So we've got this is the main board, and you've got the strategic display here, and then the tactical display here. We've also got the player aids with all the different squadron markers and bits and pieces going on. There's some player aids with all the different charts that we're going to roll on. So this is how the game ended. We have all of the Spanish yellow ships, and a lot of them ended up broken, and then the English were coming in from the west. Some of the great parts about this game, like we've mentioned, were these displays here. So it's very similar to games like Wing Leader, where you have a display for each of the squadrons, and they track your ammo and the hits that you have, and any modified strength and other event chits that you have. So it keeps track of that and keeps everything off the board. The board was very uncluttered, which I liked. And the Spanish have a very similar thing as well. For me, the one bit that I initially was I had a hang-up about was actually that the tactical display is north, south, east, and west, whereas the strategic display isn't. I'm not sure why it's not turned that way, just for ease of reference. I was looking at that and I was like, oh, that's confusing. Because I'm attacking, if I move my squadrons into the Armada from the south, I would intuitively come in this way, but actually I'm coming in this way. So there's bits and pieces to think about from orientation.
And that might have just been a condition of this many squares couldn't fit oriented like that and be on one, what is this, 11 by 8.5 by 11 almost, right? No, that's 11 by 17.
It's 9 by 9 though.
You think 9 by 9?
So,
anyway.
No, but this bit is.
Yeah.
The best part about this game for me was the combat. I thought the combat was really simple, but it was fun and very engaging. So the combat worked with, each player has a series of these combat tactics tokens, and you just choose them
blindly.
And they're secret. So I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose to use close-in style tactics. I put that face down, and the Spanish player is going to do the same thing, and they're going to say, well, I'm actually going to try and board you. We'll get engaged in some combat here. And then we reveal those, and then what happens is, on this chart, you cross-reference this combat tactics matrix. So, once again, I chose close in, so I'm going here, and the Spanish chose try to board, so we're going to use this bit, and that tells you the conditions that the combat is going to occur under. So normally combat rolls are simultaneous, but in this case, I'm going to roll 2 dice first, the Spanish player is going to take the hits, and then do a morale check, and then depending on those results, they might not even get to do anything. But if they pass that morale check, they'll get to attempt to board me, and boarding for the Spanish, you roll 3 dice pretty good. And some of the other ships give them more dice, so you want to board with those ships, try and chuck 4 dice, gets really, really, really nasty. But this was a really, really cool aspect to this game, because there was, there's 9 different combinations of things that you can end up with, and they're all slightly different, and each combat that you do, you're thinking, oh gosh, which one, under what conditions do I want to try and do it, trying to guess what the other player's doing. This was a really, really cool and
very neat design element, I thought.
Cool design. I like that a lot.
And once I figured it out, I understood tactically what I would want to do, and that's just familiarity with the system. I think next time we play, it'll be a little different, but I did like the design of that tactical matrix.
And the combat's as simple as rolling a d6 and you modify it with modifiers, and that's, you cross-reference the hit chart, and you can do 1 or 2 hits or 0 hits. And then you assign hits, and you have hits, and you can't exceed your strength. That puts you out of the game, but, I take 3 hits, then I'm going to roll a morale check, which is 2d6, and I'm trying to roll a 9.
Under a 9. 9 and less.
9 or less. So I rolled a 6, that's great. Then I add the hits that I've taken cumulatively, so I'm a 9, so I'm just barely unbroken at this point. So this was a really cool thing as well. You could take 1 hit and roll poorly and you'd be broken.
Yeah.
It's not like other games where you take half your damage and then you become broken. It doesn't take a lot. And it put part of the game that was the kind of the fear and its morale, not just we're weakened by losses.
Yeah.
You see Francis Drake come and you've taken 1 hit, you're like, run away! I thought that was a really cool little bit of theme in there, that it's not just about the hits that you take.
Yeah. The other thing that I really liked, and I'll try to show you, these are the different events that we pulled out, and you can kind of see those a little bit, but I really liked those. Once again, it added some variety and a little uncertainty, and I think many of them, especially look at the red and the yellow ones, those are the specific, the red are the English and the yellow are the Spanish. So if I drew, as part of my 2 events, if I drew a red one, I gave it over to Alexander, who then took that or kept it and used it. I really liked that, and that seemed to go very well. And then the green ones just are pretty much either good or bad for anybody, and some of them are really bad, and some of them are not bad at all. But really liked that element. I thought those random events gave the game some uncertainty, and I think helped us understand that, there was a lot involved, whether it was weather, just blind luck, the hand of God. I know.
But they also weren't massively game-breaking or super swingy.
They just kept it a little uncertain. What am I going to draw?
Yeah, some games suffer from that, where you pull a card and it's like a huge bonus or benefit to one side or a huge detriment. These don't do that, so it was a event chip pull that I'm happy with. And there's a cup and there's there's over 40 of these.
I think there's
events.
48 of those.
So you just come
Yep.
up with different ones every time, and they swing back and forth to each side. That was really cool as well.
Really enjoyed that. So that's the board. We'll go ahead and end and wrap up here.
So that was a look at the board of Invincible Armada. My final thoughts were this was a really fun game. Didn't necessarily like the ending very much, but I enjoyed the combat system, and it was very simple. I like simple tactical games, so they don't burn my brain.
All right. I think well designed. I think it's well produced. My concern, though, is I felt like we played for 2 hours, very tactical, made a lot of great decisions, a lot of I'm going to do this and not do this, and then all of a sudden it came down to a roll at the end. And I lost, so I'm probably a little stung about that, but it's not about losing, it's the way I felt the game ended. I would have preferred to see that be a little different, but I'm not a game designer, so I don't know exactly how to make that different. But neat concept overall, I think well executed, and would like to play it another time to see how it goes.
And we've also got Stalingrad and Saratoga next on the docket from Turning Point, so I'm excited. This gives
and Midway.
And Midway, that's right, Midway as well. I'm very excited to play those as well, because they've proved to me that they've made really, really good games.
Interesting games.
Very, very, very interesting. Yep. So that's Invincible Armada by Turning Point Simulations.
Thank you.